What's up everyone, welcome back to another What If video. On the last part, we covered the latter parts of Z and got into the early bits of Super. We saw some interesting developments, such as Vegeta and Gohan getting Super Saiyan God, and Piccolo even going to train with Beerus. So we're definitely going to see an increase in strength for all of these in the future. We'll be covering a few arcs during this video, so if you want to see this What If continued, be sure to drop a like. And let's try to set a like goal of 2,000 likes. And with all of that out of the way, we continue with this part. Following the events of Battle of Gods, Piccolo and Vegeta are training together on Beerus' planet. Of course, Vegeta already has a head start. He has Super Saiyan God, so he's pretty much above Piccolo. But this training may actually help Piccolo catch up. At the very least, it'll expose him to God Ki, meaning his base form alone would get exponentially more powerful. There is one more thing that I'm going to introduce here. Given that Piccolo's actually training with Beerus here, and that he's entering the realm of God similar to Vegeta and Goku, he's able to discover something surprising. One day during training, he's sparring with Vegeta, and of course Vegeta has the upper hand here. Super Saiyan God naturally will give him an advantage. Temporarily during this duel, something flares up within Piccolo. Vegeta is completely dodging or blocking all of his attacks. But suddenly, Piccolo's ki surges out of nowhere, and he lands a massive blow on Vegeta, which makes a quick flash of light, red in color. Whis is particularly interested in this. Piccolo and Vegeta don't know what happened, but Whis has a theory. It seems similar to Vegeta, Piccolo might be able to access a god form of his own. It's pretty surprising. All this time and Piccolo didn't even really have any true transformations. But with some more work, Piccolo is actually able to tap into this. So what does this god form look like? Well, it's not really too different. I actually took inspiration from Dragon Ball Heroes, where Namekian characters can class up into a god form. It changes their clothes a little bit, but there's no reason for Piccolo to change his clothes here. Besides that, the only other change is that his eyes turn red. So it's not something completely noticeable like Vegeta's change when he turns Super Saiyan God. But it appears Piccolo's finally accessed a god form of his own. Similar to Super Saiyan God, I feel a fitting name for this would be Super Namekian God. So, what happens now? Well, in the meantime while this is all happening, Frieza eventually gets revived. The thing is with Resurrection F, there's not really much that happens that could be changed in a what if. So here the events go pretty normal, up until a certain point. It is a very short plot after all, but let's cover it. Frieza is revived. He begins training, and eventually he unlocks a form that is called Golden Frieza. He plans to pay Earth a visit to get revenge on Goku and Vegeta. However, the Frieza Force provides him with some weird information. Apparently, Goku's been dead. A few years after Mecha Frieza originally died, Goku ended up dying as well. This comes as a disappointment to Frieza, but at least Vegeta is still alive, so he can go to Earth and still get his revenge. And that's what he does. His army arrives on Earth, and he's greeted with a small collection of fighters. There's a couple humans, Krillin, Roshi, Tien, and Yamcha, and a couple half Saiyans, Gohan, Trunks, and Goten. So you might be asking, why are Yamcha, Goten, and Trunks here? Well, as for Yamcha, you might remember how in the last few parts I mentioned that everyone else was motivated to train now without Goku around. They needed to pick up the slack somehow. They have one less strong fighter to defend Earth if they ever need. While there's not a massive increase in strength, the humans are stronger. This also applies to Goten and Trunks somewhat, except they mostly train with Gohan. I imagine it kinda like Trunks' relationship with Gohan in History of Trunks. Except now you throw Goten into the picture because he's actually around this time. Sure, they don't do excessive training, but in their free time they're occasionally training with Gohan. This is some nice practice for them. But of course, these guys aren't the real threat. Frieza exits his pod and makes his presence known. Gohan and Frieza stare at each other, and Frieza goes into his final form. They're ready to fight. While Gohan is holding his own in base right now, he's amazed at how strong Frieza is in his final form. This is kinda worrying. He got this strong in such a short amount of time, and even though he's matching Gohan right now, somehow Frieza still looks confident. Gohan's suspicious and asks Frieza what he's hiding. Frieza reveals his secret. He has a brand new form, far stronger than his current final form. But then he asks Gohan something. He knows Gohan's holding back as well, and he wants to see the full power of the half Saiyan. Gohan obliges, and he turns Super Saiyan God. Frieza chuckles to himself. This form seems quite powerful, but he doesn't think it'll actually be enough to take on Golden Frieza. He prepares the transformation, telling Gohan to enjoy the show as this will be the last thing he sees. Frieza assumes a transformation stance, and then suddenly, he's attacked by Gohan. After Gohan found out that Frieza's new form is stronger than his God form, Gohan doesn't want to take any chances. Not allowing Frieza to recollect himself, Gohan keeps attacking with his full speed and full power. Frieza in his final form can't handle this, and he also can't get an opening to transform with how fast Gohan's attacking. Angered, Frieza finally regains his footing, and starts to transform. During the transformation, however, he's hit by a massive Masenko. The gold light of Frieza's transformation combines with that of the Masenko, illuminating the area around it. The energy beam dissipates, and the remains are shown. Nothing is there. Frieza has been completely disintegrated. This was a smart move on Gohan's part. Remember that Gohan's been training a lot with Piccolo beforehand. During fights, Gohan is known to get a little bit cocky, and he's shown to let his guard down a couple of times. As we saw in Super, Piccolo was able to help Gohan correct this. And since Gohan has had much more training with Piccolo here, especially beforehand during the Android saga, this is a flaw that Gohan doesn't suffer from. He doesn't want to get too ahead of himself and see Frieza transform, so he wanted to end the fight as quickly as possible. Earth was at stake and he didn't want to risk that. Piccolo and Vegeta don't even need to show up on Earth. Gohan had it handled, and everything's all set now. However, a new figure appears in the story, someone who isn't from Universe 7. Champa from Universe 6, Beerus' brother, has been scouring Universe 7 to collect the Super Dragon Balls. And of course, you know what this leads into, the Universe 6 Tournament of Destroyers. Well, now they actually need to get 5 people for a team. Of course, the two obvious picks are Vegeta and Piccolo. They're basically there by default. Next, they consult Gohan, who is actually able to make some time here. So who are the other 2 members? Vegeta wonders if they can ask Goten and Trunks. But there's a few issues with that. For one, they're not really as experienced right now. Sure, they might have the power to back it up, but the group has better options in terms of experienced fighters. The 3 of them plan on using the Room of Spirit and Time, and they could take Goten and Trunks in there, but of course Chi-Chi and Bulma probably wouldn't allow that. Understandably, they wouldn't want their sons to age up 3 years in 3 days. And there's no other ways for them to train Goten and Trunks that quickly. Gohan has a suggestion for the next 2 fighters though. They can definitely ask Krillin, Tien, or Yamcha, all of whom are stronger and more motivated than their original counterparts. So which of these 3 would actually join? Krillin and Yamcha have the most free time, so they're probably the best candidates. Assuming Tien would want to stick by his dojo. Well, that's perfect. They have 5 people on the team, and it seems that they're ready. And now, we proceed to the tournament. The first matchup takes place between Yamcha and Potamo. And pretty much like usual, Yamcha can't find any way to hurt Potamo. He tries attacking with normal punches and kicks, but does nothing. He even tries to break out a Spirit Ball, but it just bounces off Potamo and has no effect. That's when Yamcha picks up on something. Potamo doesn't completely absorb damage. He's actually just very stretchy and bouncy. Maybe Yamcha could use this to his advantage. Not holding back at all, Yamcha begins going all out against Potamo. With a rapid Wolf Fang fist, it actually stretches Potamo out a bit, causing him to fly back somewhat. Perfect, just as Yamcha planned. While Potamo's midair and trying to regain his footing on the ground, Yamcha attacks with another Wolf Fang fist, sending him all the way up into the air. Yamcha then leaps high into the sky and prepares a Kamehameha, launching it towards Potamo, which knocks him clear out of the ring. Yamcha takes the win here. And next up, he's against Frost. And let's just say this doesn't go too well for him, because the poison needles. Once Yamcha's knocked out, he even says that there's something fishy going on here, feeling that Frost is using some kind of foul play. Universe 6 brushes this off as Yamcha being a sore loser, but Yamcha's actually telling the truth. Krillin faces Frost next, and he gets a similar treatment, but they actually are able to catch Frost using the poison needles. Krillin tries a solar flare in order to have a surprise attack on Frost, but somehow he still gets hit by Frost's attack, since Frost guards himself with the needles out, and that's when they see what happens. Frost gets disqualified, and Krillin actually gets to stay in. Once recovered from the poison, he's up against Vegeta. And I'm sure Krillin would be able to come up with some creative insults to knock Vegeta out, so he gets a win here. Next, Krillin's up against Cabba, and he's surprised to see a Saiyan from Universe 6. Cabba is the complete opposite of any other Saiyans that Krillin knows, and he's pretty shocked to see the differences between a Universe 6 Saiyan and a Universe 7 Saiyan. Cabba is no slouch though. He's very strong, and he is actually able to get the win over Krillin. Gohan is eventually up next against Cabba, and he ends up winning. Cabba never learns Super Saiyan, which will come into play later during the Tournament of Power. And finally, we have Gohan versus Hit. And Gohan decides he's going to show off his new form here. He joined Vegeta and Piccolo in some Room of Spirit and Time training before the tournament, because he was pretty curious about something. Vegeta showed off a new form that he accessed while on Beerus' planet, called Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan, or Super Saiyan Blue for short. A much more concise name. Naturally, Gohan was pretty curious about this, and wanted to see if he could improve his Super Saiyan God form as well. He didn't go into the Room of Spirit and Time too long, just because he didn't want to be in there years on end, but he was actually able to unlock this new form. He starts off fighting Hit in base, eventually cranking up to Super Saiyan and Super Saiyan God, and then he reveals this new form. He kinda stole the show from Vegeta, because this is the first time everyone else is seeing Super Saiyan Blue, besides Piccolo. Gohan's red aura begins turning blue, and suddenly, his hair transitions as well, as do his eyes. Almost as if it's cracking, the glass-like aura around him explodes, and it reveals his new form, Super Saiyan Blue. Even with the dramatic revelation though, this doesn't do much for Hit. Gohan is able to do some damage, but Hit eventually takes the win here. So, who's next? Piccolo's actually the one up after Gohan, and Hit's actually pretty curious about this one. He knows about Namekians from his universe, and he wonders if this one is any similar. Hit is surprised to find out how strong this guy is, and then Hit's briefly able to pick up on something. During the fight, he notices that Piccolo's eyes suddenly turn red, kinda like that Saiyan he fought earlier. Does this Namekian have some sort of new form? Even with this new form, however, Piccolo is still no match for Hit, and Hit is improving quickly, but Piccolo does have one more ace up his sleeve. This is a great opportunity. Hit thinks that this is Piccolo's full power, but he is sorely mistaken. Out of nowhere, Hit is suddenly assaulted by attacks from all angles from Piccolo. Somehow Piccolo's speed has increased dramatically, as well as his power. Once he recollects himself, he begins defending, and he can't even see Piccolo with how fast he's moving. He's attacked by a massive ki blast from Piccolo, and once the light clears, he's surrounded by a bunch of different clones of Piccolo, who've all seemed to return back to their normal power. They eventually start flinging ki blasts left and right to Hit, which either completely miss or are knocked away by Hit. Rapidly, more and more of these ki blasts appear, and then Hit looks up and realizes what's going on. All of those ki blasts suddenly come towards Hit, and even with his time skip, this isn't something he could dodge. It's an attack coming from all angles, which is really the only kind of thing I don't think Hit can defend himself against. This is the perfect distraction for Piccolo. His clones disappear and reform into one Piccolo, as he places his fingers on his forehead. The ki blasts stop coming towards Hit, and the explosions dissipate. Hit has his arms up to guard himself because he had no choice but to take the attack head on. He's briefly staggered, but overall okay. Just as the blasts disappear, Hit is suddenly hit by a concentrated beam of energy from Piccolo. He was too focused on the Hellzone grenade around him to dodge Piccolo's current attack, the special beam cannon that he's been charging up, and that's when Hit sees it. Briefly, while Piccolo's launching this attack, his eyes appear to flash a different color. They appear to be glowing blue. The special beam cannon isn't enough to actually pierce through Hit, and Piccolo knows that, and this works towards his advantage because it actually knocks Hit out of the ring. Piccolo takes the win against Hit here, but only barely. Feigning his weakness was a great technique, as well as utilizing his abilities to the fullest. Champa's speechless. He doesn't even know what just happened, and a lot of Universe 7 is pretty speechless as well. They didn't know about Piccolo's red-eyed form, but Beerus, Whis, Vegeta, and Gohan know all about it, and while no one else really caught it, Hit saw briefly during that fight. With that same Room of Spirit and time training, and all of his training with Beerus and Whis, Piccolo was able to become massively powerful, not on Vegeta's level but pretty much far ahead of everyone else. He unlocked a new form of his own too, besides Super Namekian God, which he just refers to as Super Namekian Blue. It still is kind of a mouthful, so we'll just call it Blue-Eyed Piccolo, which is essentially his version of Super Saiyan Blue. Once again, I did take this from Dragon Ball Heroes because that is another class-up option for Namekians. And it is pretty weird for me to be taking video game techniques, but I do think it is an interesting thing to have Namekians have different forms. It's a way to give Piccolo something without completely making up some brand new form that I just created in my head. So it is somewhat grounded, just not really grounded in canon. It kinda sucks for Vegeta. He didn't get his opportunity to shine. Monaka got lucky here because he wasn't actually needed. It's a good thing that Piccolo and Vegeta are already motivated enough to train, otherwise Monaka may have had to face off against an assassin. Things proceed normally from here, but a new threat is about to appear, a Kai named Zamasu. Oh yeah, you know where this is going. Wait, whoa, hold on though. This is the future Trunks timeline that we're talking about here. This whole what if is about Piccolo saving this future timeline. So what do we do here about that? So this is where I want some input from you guys. I'm sure Zamasu's Zero Mortals plan will continue as normal, but I want you to decide where he travels to. This timeline, another universe, you decide. Be sure to comment below where you think they'll travel, and let me know why you think that'll happen. And we'll leave off here for now. So what did you guys think about this part? What do you think will happen next time? Be sure to leave thoughts and suggestions in the comments below, and I'll be sure to check them out to see what you guys think. As always, if you liked the video, be sure to drop a like. And if you haven't already, why not subscribe, as well as hitting the bell icon to get notified about any future parts of this What If, or any other videos that I upload on my channel. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you on my next video.